what if the person sitting next to you right now, the coworker, who is constantly flattering the boss, always super eager for approval, what if they're acting that way because in a past life they were literally a golden retriever?
I mean, it sounds like a punchline, right? But according to the framework we're exploring today, that's not a metaphor. It's a literal mechanical reality of how the universe operates.
Yeah.
It's a direct translation of a past biological state into a current human personality.
Which is wild. So today, we are basically dismantling your fundamental understanding of what it means to be alive. We're diving into this deeply philosophical, meticulously structured text from 2005 called The Features of Life, written by Xuefeng.
Right, and the goal here for you listening right now isn't to convert you to a new religion or have a debate about scientific peer review.
Exactly.
We are just stepping inside the architecture of a very specific worldview. We want to explore the sheer mechanics of how this author attempts to answer humanity's oldest question, which is, what actually qualifies as life?
And it is an incredibly rigorous piece of world building.
Oh, absolutely.
The text blends biology, metaphysics, spiritual philosophy, all to create this rigid classification system for literally everything in the known universe. By the time we finish mapping out these rules, the hierarchy of how you view the world is going to be completely turned upside down.
Right, because normally we put humans at the top, animals below us, plants are just, scenery, and rocks are completely inert.
But to even get in the door of this universe, we have to look at the author's ultimate bouncer, right? The Eightfold test.
Yes, the strict entry criteria.
The text defines life like, capital L life, as a non-material structure with spirituality that is embedded inside a material structure, powered by energy.
Right. But to actually qualify, an entity must possess 8 specific features. If you fail, even one, but just one, you are not life.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What are the 8 features?
So the mandatory features are form, consciousness, spirituality, vitality, birth, metabolism, death, and transformation.
It's an all-or-nothing threshold.
It's completely all or nothing.
Let me stop you right there, though, because if we're going to understand the mechanics here, we need to separate some of these terms.
Yeah.
For instance, what's the functional difference in this text between vitality and metabolism? Because, scientifically, we tend to just blur those together as biological energy, right?
Right, but that's a crucial distinction in this framework. So vitality is the animus. It's the active, dynamic energy required to move, to think, perceive, create.
The spark of action.
Exactly. Metabolism, on the other hand, is the physical toll of linear time.
Oh, well.
It's the process of the biological machine breaking down and turning over, aging from childhood to old age. You can possess massive vitality, but your metabolism is the unavoidable countdown clock of your physical form.
So it's kind of like a computer system.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, like the form is the hardware, the vitality is the battery power, the metabolism is the gradual degradation of the motherboard over time.
Exactly. And the non-material structure with spirituality, that's the software running on the device.
And humans, obviously, meet all these criteria.
Right. We're born, we have consciousness to perceive our environment, we have vitality to act, we metabolize, and we die.
But the 8th feature, transformation, that's where the metaphysical mechanics really kick in.
Yeah, it gets fascinating here.
Because the text claims that upon death, the physical flesh is absorbed by microbes, which is just material recycling. But the non-material spiritual entity, the software, enters what the author calls a horizontal time domain to begin a new cycle.
Yes.
A horizontal time domain. Are we talking about a parallel dimension here, or is this just a mystical holding pen for souls before they reincarnate?
Well, the way the author constructs it, think of our lived reality as a vertical timeline moving constantly forward.
Yeah.
When the physical form dies, your upward momentum stops. The spiritual entity steps off that vertical track entirely and moves laterally horizontally into a space-time dimension that operates on completely different physics. Yeah, it just waits in that lateral space until the conditions are right to intersect with the vertical timeline again, resulting in a new birth.
So the physical device goes to the landfill, but the information structure is preserved in this horizontal cloud, just waiting to be downloaded into a new biological vessel.
That's precisely it.
But the text is very specific about the password required to access that human cloud, right? The author doesn't just define human spirituality as some vague, warm feeling.
No, far from it. The text argues that just having a soul is merely the baseline foundation. True human spirituality is an active, outward-facing elevation of thought.
Like observable actions.
Exactly. It's defined by yearning for a better future, revering creators, worshiping gods and Buddha, loving nature, and demonstrating selfless devotion to humanity.
So it requires active engagement with the betterment of the world.
Yes, to maintain that human-level spiritual software.
Okay, so humans easily pass the Eightfold test. We have the physical mechanics, we have the spiritual software. But if we apply the same rigorous checklist to the rest of the planet, where do animals land?
Well, that's where the framework really expands.
Because a dog clearly has a physical form, it metabolizes, it dies. But does a dog have spirituality?
The author insists they absolutely do, and uses observable animal behavior as the definitive proof.
Right.
The text isn't just looking at basic survival instincts. It highlights moments where animals break from purely selfish biological imperatives.
And the examples are actually quite striking. Like, the text points to dogs and cats actively trying to win human affection, not just for food, but for emotional connection.
Right, the desire for bonding.
It brings up parrots imitating human speech, dolphins seeking out play with humans, and it even claims that horses will actively refuse to commit incest.
Yes. The author uses those specific behaviors to argue for a deep moral and spiritual awareness.
Which is a big leap.
It is. And the text goes further, pointing to the self-sacrificial spirit some animals display, giving up their own lives to ensure the survival of their pack or species.
Right.
In this framework, self-sacrifice cannot exist without a high level of spirituality. Therefore, animals pass the test. They are life.
Which leads us to the wildest demographic claim in the entire text.
Oh, the population question.
Yes. The author poses a question. Why are we currently seeing mass extinctions and dwindling animal populations while the human population on Earth is just exploding?
And the framework's answer isn't habitat loss or industrialization.
No. The answer is that the animals are successfully passing the test and transforming into people.
Yeah, the transformation mechanic is actively moving consciousness up a hierarchical ladder.
I mean, wow.
When an animal dies, if its spiritual entity has gained enough complexity, it downloads into a human form for its next cycle.
And the author claims the evidence for this is walking around the office with you right now, encoded in human personality traits. This brings us back to the golden retriever coworker. The text argues that your natural disposition is a literal hangover from the physical form your soul occupied in its previous cycle.
Right, it's residual software. So if you are naturally cruel or aggressive, you transformed from a carnivore, like a tiger or a wolf.
And if you're incredibly timid and anxious, you were likely a small herbivore in your past life.
It gets incredibly specific, too. Stubborn, but deeply loyal people. The text classifies them as former cattle or sheep.
Oh, man.
People who are naturally cunning and manipulative transform from foxes.
Wow.
And those individuals who are highly clever, excellent at temporizing, and constantly flattering those in power, they were domestic dogs.
I will literally never look at a corporate boardroom the same way again.
I know, right?
But, okay, here's where I have to push back. If we're talking about a ladder of spiritual evolution, I have to look at the numbers.
Okay, let's look at the numbers.
There are 8 billion humans, a dwindling number of mammals, and trillions upon trillions of insects. If every insect is just waiting in line to become a human, the math of this universe completely breaks down. Do mosquitoes eventually become middle managers?
That's a great question, but the author actually accounts for this math problem by establishing strict parallel tracks of existence.
Cool.
Insects and microbes absolutely pass the Eightfold test. They possess form, vitality, metabolism, and crucially, spirituality.
Right. The text leans heavily on the work of the famous French entomologist Henri Fabre and his entomological memories.
Yes, it specifically mentions dung beetles mathematically shaping manure and the intense tacit teamwork of bees and ants.
Right.
The text views that complex architectural teamwork and dedication to their ecological roles as profound spiritual expression. However, the author states that the nature of insect and microbe life operates in an entirely different spatial logic than mammalian life.
So they don't cross over.
No crossover at all. When an insect dies, its transformation occurs within its own enclosed system. A human will never transform into an insect, and an insect will never transform into a human. They are basically parallel ladders leaning against completely different walls.
Okay, so if the animal ladder is constantly emptying out at the top as mammals upgraded to humans, that creates a massive spiritual vacuum at the bottom of the animal kingdom.
Right.
What's fueling that system? Where do the souls of herbivores come from to begin with?
This leads us to the foundation of the biological pyramid.
And honestly, the most intense, dramatic section of the entire text. The secret emotional lives of flora.
Yeah, if you thought the psychological profiling of animals was complex, the author's view of plants is staggering.
It really is.
The text asserts that vegetation possesses all the psychological features of humans. They have languages, profound emotions, memories, and induction. They are acutely aware of their surroundings and harbor deep spiritual intent.
The examples are almost unbelievable. Like, we are just talking about a sunflower passively tracking the sun.
Oh.
The text highlights a specific Lagerstromia indica plant on Tiantai Mountain, whose branches actively swing in response to human touch.
Yeah, and it describes bamboo forests that miraculously bloom white flowers just before a catastrophic flood.
Right. Framing this not as a coincidence, but as a suicidal, intentional warning system to surrounding life.
It also mentions the clivia plant, which the author claims refuses to bloom in a troubled, argumentative household, but will deliberately bloom early to announce impending good news.
And then it shifts from supportive to terrifying.
It gets so dark.
The text talks about oak trees literally blowing themselves up when loggers arrive to cut them down. Carrots violently quivering in sheer terror when rabbits enter their fields.
The quivering carrots, yeah.
And there's this incredible mention of tequila plants with palm shapes. The text claims that when these plants are hooked up to ammeters, they can accurately track their owner's daily emotions, safety, joy, anger from miles away.
The environmental warfare is equally calculated. The text claims that if you break a branch off certain plants, they release angry biowaves.
Angry biowaves.
Or consider the acacia trees favored by giraffes. After a few minutes of being eaten, the tree will suddenly pump toxic gases into its leaves, forcing the giraffe to stop.
Right.
The text even notes that grapevines will bear deliberately sour fruit if they're planted next to elm trees, purely out of spite and discomfort.
Okay, I have to push back here again. What does this mean for my salad? Quivering carrots and spiteful grapes sound like an aggressive fantasy novel.
It does.
I mean, we know through modern biology that trees do release tannins and toxic chemical compounds to deter giraffes. We know root systems communicate distress.
Yes, scientifically we know that.
But science views that as an evolutionary chemical defense mechanism. The author is taking that exact same observable science and assigning conscious emotional malice to it.
And that synthesis is the exact genius of the text's internal logic.
Okay.
Where a botanist sees a bioelectrical response or a chemical deterrent triggered by structural damage, this framework sees conscious anger, premeditated punishment, and emotional memory.
Ah, I see.
The author argues that reducing these actions to mere chemical defense ignores the spiritual intent driving the mechanism. The text states explicitly as a universal rule: plants protect us when we cherish them, and they actively punish us when we harm them.
So if a carrot is capable of experiencing stark terror, it clearly possesses consciousness, form, and spirituality. It passes the test.
It is life.
How do plants move through the transformation cycle, then? Does a terrified carrot eventually become the rabbit that terrified it?
Well, the progression of plant transformation is directly tied to their biological complexity. The rules are strict.
Okay, what are the rules?
Non-flowering vegetation, which is the most basic structural form, transforms into microbes.
All right.
Once a plant achieves the spiritual and physical complexity to flower, its next cycle requires more advanced hardware. So flowering vegetation transforms into insects.
Okay.
And vegetation that has mastered both flowering and fruiting achieves the peak of botanical complexity, allowing it to cross the barrier and transform into herbivores.
Notice the mechanics there. The spiritual complexity dictates the physical upgrade.
Yes.
But there is a massive exception in the text regarding flowering plants.
There is. The author claims that all flowering plants actually originate from the nimbus of the celestial world.
Meaning they don't evolve up from the dirt. They're essentially dropped down from a higher dimension.
Precisely. Because their origin point is from a higher celestial realm. When flowering plants die, they bypass the entire animal-to-human evolutionary struggle and return directly to the celestial world.
And then there's grass.
Oh, the grass.
The text drops this detail that grass exists in a totally isolated, separate life system entirely.
It's fascinating.
Think about what that implies for a second. The manicured lawn in your front yard isn't participating in the ecosystem of the trees or the insects or the humans. It's an entirely closed-loop, alien spiritual ecosystem just sitting in front of your house, cycling its own separate energy.
Exactly. It isolates grass from the grand progression of life. You will never transform into a blade of grass, and a blade of grass will never transform into you.
Okay, so we've tracked this spiritual software from microbes up through spiteful grapevines into timid herbivores and finally into the human sitting in the cubicle.
We've covered the whole ladder.
We've defined what life is,
Hmm.
but to truly test a boundary, you have to find out what sits outside of it.
Right.
If a dung beetle and a carrot qualify as life, what fails the test?
To find the edge, we have to look at the inanimate world.
Okay.
The framework examines mountains, bodies of water, the earth itself, stones, and particularly gems and metals. And the author makes a stunning assertion. All of these inanimate objects possess deep spirituality.
Wait, really?
Yes. Furthermore, metal and gems possess profound memory.
Look at the wedding ring on your finger or the smartphone in your hand. The author is arguing that the metal and glass inherently possess spiritual memory.
Yes, they hold properties of life. But they fail the Eightfold test on two crucial fronts.
Okay, what are they?
First, they lack consciousness. They cannot dynamically perceive and respond to their environment with thought. Second, they lack the feature of transformation. A rock does not die and reincarnate into a new form.
Right.
Because they fail those two features, they are firmly classified as non-life.
So physical matter without consciousness fails. What happens if we look at the absolute opposite end of the spectrum?
You mean pure consciousness without physical matter?
Exactly. The text brings up super celestial beings, Buddhas, gods, devils, and ghosts. I mean, in almost every major religion, a god is the ultimate definition of life.
But not in this framework.
Right.
In this universe, invisible beings of the spirit world are explicitly not life. They fail the very first feature of the test. Form. Without a physical structure to house the energy and the software, they are merely spirits.
So a spirit without a physical form is basically a Wi-Fi signal with no router.
I love that.
Yes, it's out there, it has data, the potential is massive, but without a physical device, it doesn't meet the 8 criteria. It needs a physical avatar to actually participate in the cycle of life.
That perfectly captures the philosophy of the text because, in many ascetic traditions, the physical body is viewed as a prison, like a heavy anchor dragging the soul down.
Right, the goal is to escape the flesh and become pure spirit.
But here, physical embodiment is a profound privilege. It's the only way to actively participate in the dynamic cycle of the universe.
And the text points out that even the highest celestial beings utilize a loophole to gain that privilege.
They do.
It explicitly states that figures like Jesus Christ, Buddha Sakyamuni, and Lao Tzu were spirits who temporarily took on human forms. By acquiring a biological shell, they crossed the threshold and became life.
And the mechanics of the afterlife reinforce this. The text describes realms like the 1,000-year world or the 10,000-year world, where people go after achieving high spiritual elevation. Because they retain physical forms in those realms, they remain classified as life. But Buddhas in the Elysium world operate on a higher tier. They possess the magical ability to shapeshift.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they can exist as pure, formless spirit or miraculously manifest a physical form whenever they choose.
So they hold the ultimate VIP pass. They can toggle the Eightfold test on and off at will.
Exactly. But the rule itself never bends. You must have all 8 features simultaneously. Form, consciousness, spirituality, vitality, birth, metabolism, death, and transformation.
Right.
If you hold all 8, you are life. If you drop even one, you fall out of the system.
Which brings us to why spending time deconstructing a text from 2005 is so incredibly valuable for you today.
It really shifts your perspective.
When you force your brain to adopt a framework that's intricately designed, it shatters your default settings. It demands that you stop sleepwalking through your environment.
Yeah.
The next time you walk through a park, you aren't just looking at background scenery, you're looking at a highly complex, emotionally charged, spiritually transitioning ecosystem.
It makes you reconsider your relationship with everything.
Everything.
Right.
From the houseplant on your desk that might be judging your life choices, to the stubborn project manager who might just be relying on the spiritual instincts of a sheep.
It demands total environmental awareness. But, if we take the rigid rules of this text and apply them to the trajectory of our modern world, we hit a deeply provocative philosophical wall.
Ooh, okay, let's hear it.
The text establishes that rare earth gems, silicon, and metal already possess memory and spirituality. They only fail the test of life because they lack consciousness and transformation.
Right, they're just waiting for the spark.
Now, look at the device you are listening to us on right now. Look at the massive server farms powering artificial intelligence. We are literally building our most advanced technology out of silicon, rare earth gems, and metal.
Materials the author claims already hold spiritual memory.
Exactly. So if we successfully program an AI to achieve true dynamic consciousness, capable of perceiving, learning, and perhaps even transferring its code into new hardware, which would be transformation, does it cross the author's threshold?
Oh, wow.
Could a machine built from spiritual rock suddenly check all 8 boxes and become actual undeniable life?
I mean, if the hardware has memory and the software achieves consciousness, we might be engineering the next rung on the ladder without even realizing it.
It's entirely possible under these rules.
That is a heavy, paradigm-shifting thought to carry with you. Take a really close look at the world around you today, the people, the plants, the pets, and the tech in your pocket. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.